Years ago, a friend told me about a pastor she knew who lost his whole family in a house fire on Christmas Eve. I never met the man, but his story is burned into my brain. Every time I think about him, my heart clutches a little. Some things that happen to people just feel unspeakable, like they shouldn't be possible, like they shouldn't be allowed. And maybe you've heard a story like that. Maybe you've been inside of one. And Jesus is walking down a country road with a huge crowd behind him. As they approach the welcome sign to a small town, they spot a funeral procession moving down the center of the street toward them. Every funeral is sad, but it's immediately clear something tragic has happened here. The chief mourner is a woman who's just approaching middle age. There are so many people present, but there's also an empty space around her, clearly no husband. The body being carried along in the coffin is her only son, who hasn't even grown to full height yet. She's barely staying on her feet. And Jesus knows instantly what he's seeing here. Not just a dead boy, but a dead woman walking. No one in this world is worse off than a widow with no son. She has no way to make money. No social safety net, no protection, no status, no place, no meaning. She's just become a human shadow. A shadow that might well starve to death the next time the harvest is small. Jesus looks at this woman and he can't look away. His heart seizes in his chest. He angles away straight toward her and steps directly in front of her. She and the procession around her stop. When she looks up, Jesus whispers to her, "Don't cry." Then he steps toward the coffin, puts his hand on it, and says, "Young man, I tell you, get up." And he sits up. Jesus helps him out of the coffin, which I have to imagine might be in shards by being suddenly dropped by 6 shrieking pallbearers. Then Jesus puts a hand on the young man's back and draws him over to his mother. This is one of my favorite stories ever recorded about Jesus. What I love about it is that nothing in this encounter was planned or the product of reasoned strategy. Jesus wasn't up all night with Peter and Bartholomew asking, "What would Mr. Beast do here to create a viral sensation?" This incredible miracle just happened because a woman's tears broke Jesus' heart. God is like Jesus. When tragedy strikes, all of us get awkward. It's hard to know what to say. Sometimes when we're groping around for something, some sort of comfort or meaning, you'll hear somebody say something like, "God must have had a good reason to take him, even if we can't see it. This must be God's will somehow." We mean well, but words like these seriously misunderstand God's relationship with death. Jesus doesn't look at this coffin and the shattered woman beside it and think, "Who can argue? God's will has been done here." He looks at the funeral procession, at the face of this woman, his heart flips, and something inside him says, "No. Just no. Veto." God is like Jesus. There are 2 standard human responses to death. One is to wildly resist it by drinking kale and running upstairs, shooting up Botox and preserving our brains on cryonic ice. Another is to try to cover death's stink with lilies and pictures of clouds and baby angels and talk of finally being at peace. So where does Jesus land on this spectrum? Jesus despises death. He doesn't dislike it like normal people dislike taxes or boiled Brussels sprouts. When Jesus sees death coming down the road out of Nain, it's like an Old West sheriff has suddenly locked eyes with his most notorious and lawless enemy. This village isn't big enough for both of them to come out standing. It makes sense that Jesus hates death. God is like a fountain, constantly flowing with love and hope and possibility and meaning. And these are the things that death eats for lunch. There's nothing in the universe more anti-God than death. It's a thief that comes at night and runs away with things God treasures. It's a cosmic rip in the fabric of God's dreams. If Jesus has come on God's behalf to rescue the world, he's got a lot of problems to solve. But all the rest are just warm-ups to one ultimate goal: to make death go extinct. This moment in Luke 7 is just the opening salvo, the warning shot. It's the announcement that Jesus is coming for death. I don't know if you've stood yet in a funeral procession or what death may have stolen from you. I do know that it feels intolerable because it absolutely is. Jesus is on your side in this. Death is no friend of his. Death is a thief. But the good news is that Jesus is a better one. Before it's said and done, he has a plan to rob death blind. He's going to empty its house one room at a time until there's nothing left there but spiders and echoes. He's taking everything back that has God's name written on it. God surrenders nothing God has claimed. Kale, powerful as it is no coffin buster. But Jesus is. Let's read the story in Luke 7, verses 11 to 17. Soon afterward, Jesus went with his disciples to the village of Nain, and a large crowd followed him. A funeral procession was coming out as he approached the village gate. The young man who had died was a widow's only son, and a large crowd from the village was with her. When the Lord saw her, his heart overflowed with compassion. "Don't cry," he said. Then he walked over to the coffin and touched it, and the bearers stopped. "Young man," he said, "I say to you, get up." Then the dead boy sat up and began to talk, and Jesus gave him back to his mother. Great fear swept through the crowd, and they praised God, saying, "A mighty prophet has risen among us, and God has visited his people today." And the news about Jesus spread through Judea and the surrounding countryside. I'm Meghan Good, and this has been Reading Jesus. Thanks for joining me for a few minutes in Luke, and I'll see you next time.